The mother of a toddler and 3 others have been charged after the 2-year-old was fatally shot on Sunday afternoon. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham has signed key bills on voting access, psilocybin therapy, and police hiring. New Mexico's retirement and investment funds are weathering the market shock from the Trump-era trade war. And a watchdog organization is suing the New Mexico Corrections Department over open records violations. From the Albuquerque Journal, this is the leading news. I'm Gino Gutierrez. It's Tuesday, April 8th, and I'll have more on those stories in a few moments, plus a look at Albuquerque's weather forecast on the other side of this break.
This episode is brought to you by the Kirtland Partnership Committee. For 30 years, we've been dedicated to supporting, growing, and preserving the Kirtland National Security Complex. We work tirelessly to enhance military readiness, foster community partnerships, improve quality of life, and promote economic development right here in New Mexico. Join us in our mission to ensure that Kirtland remains a cornerstone of national security and a key provider of quality jobs and investment for all of Greater Albuquerque. Together, we can make a powerful impact. Kirtland Partnership Committee, proudly shaping the future of our national security for 30 years.
2-year-old Leon Garcia was fatally shot on Sunday afternoon in a southeast Albuquerque apartment in what his mother, Amelia Garcia, described as a, quote, incident. Garcia was arrested and charged with child abuse resulting in death, tampering with evidence, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. 3 others, Angel Morales, Angelica Lucero, and Angel Cordova, were also arrested and charged with tampering with evidence after allegedly removing the gun from the apartment following the shooting. All 4 individuals are currently being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives is now involved in the investigation. Albuquerque Police Chief Harold Medina also mentioned that Amelia Garcia could be charged under the Benny Hargrove Gun Safety Act, which penalizes neglect firearm storage that leads to injury or death of a minor. According to police, officers responded to a report of a shooting around 3 p.m. at an apartment near Bueno Vista and Gibson, and when they arrived, Angelica Lucero was seen carrying Leon, who had a gunshot wound to the chest. Despite effort by first responders, the boy died at the scene. Amelia Garcia told detectives she was in another room when she heard a, quote, loud bang. When she entered the room, she found her son shot. It remains unclear if anyone else was in the room with Leon at the time. Her 1-year-old son was also present in the home, but was not injured. Garcia initially claimed that the gun was no longer in the apartment and that she didn't know where it had gone. Investigators later learned that she had allegedly asked Cordova to remove the weapon after the incident. Cordova told police he found 2 firearms in a diaper bag, one with a long magazine. He later returned one of them to the police. He also stated that Garcia had wiped the gun before asking him to take it. Lucero reportedly warned Garcia in the past to keep the gun away from the children. Chief Harold Medina described the incident as, quote, heartbreaking, and said this young child lost their life so needlessly because of the negligence of someone with a firearm. He emphasized that while the investigation is still developing, the tragic loss underscores the dangers of unsecured firearms around children. On Monday, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signed a set of significant bills into law, including measures to expand primary election access for independent voters and establish a state-run medical psilocybin program. These actions were part of a broader legislative push, with the governor signing 60 bills ahead of the deadline to act on legislation passed during this year's 60-day legislative session. One of the most impactful laws will allow New Mexico's 310,000 independent voters to participate in primary elections without changing party affiliation. This starts in 2026, and this reform was praised by voting rights advocates who hope it will increase voter turnout and civic participation. Previously, independents, who make up 23% of the state's 1.3 million registered voters, had to formally change their affiliation to vote in a primary, a process many found burdensome and confusing. Another groundbreaking law signed by the governor authorizes a state-regulated psilocybin therapy program for patients suffering from PTSD, substance use disorders, and other mental health conditions. Under the law, patients can use psilocybin under medical supervision, making New Mexico just the 3rd state in the nation after Oregon and Colorado to permit such a program. The legislation saw strong support from military veterans, many of who shared personal stories of healing with psilocybin. The move reflects the national growing interest in in psychedelic-assisted therapies as an alternative for mental health treatment. Also signed into law was Senate Bill 364, which allows non-citizens with legal work authorization to be employed as law enforcement officers in New Mexico. The bill addresses ongoing staffing shortages in police departments across the state and broadens eligibility criteria for the profession. In total, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signed 84 bills from the recent session and vetoed 2, including one that would give local school boards control over the number of annual school days, and another concerning changes to probation and parole rules. As of Monday, 111 bills remain on her desk, including a $10.8 billion state budget and a tax package passed late in the session. A notable bill requiring lobbyists to disclose which legislation they support or oppose is also awaiting her decision. Under New Mexico law, any bills not signed by Friday's deadline will be automatically vetoed, a process known as a pocket veto. While the governor didn't hold a public news conference to announce the signings, having just returned from speaking at Harvard, the ripple effects of these legislative changes are already being felt by advocates and communities statewide. New Mexico's public pension systems and investment funds have taken a significant financial hit amid a steep stock market downturn triggered by President Donald Trump's escalating trade war. Despite the short-term impact, state officials say long-term stability remains intact, at least for now. The Education Retirement Board, which oversees pensions for retired teachers and school staff, reported nearly $500 million in losses over the past week, shrinking its portfolio. Chief Investment Officer Bob Jaksha said the downturn, though sharp, isn't expected to threaten the fund's long-term solvency unless the downturn deepens or persists. He blamed the market plunge on what he called, quote, economic malfeasance by the Trump administration, particularly unexpected tariff hikes on foreign imports that jolted investors. About a quarter of the retirement board's investments are in private equity, shielding it somewhat from the worst of the public market slump. Similarly, the Public Employees Retirement Association, or PERA, which manages pensions for state and local government workers, saw its portfolio drop by about $250 million in just 1 week. Executive Director Greg Trujillo emphasized the association's diversified portfolio, noting its limited exposure to stocks helps soften the blow. He said the fund is built to endure worse conditions than even the 2008 recession without risking retirement payouts. The State Investment Council, which oversees 12 funds, including the state's permanent funds for education and early childhood programs, reported more than $1 billion in value lost since late February. Still, officials stress that annual state funding distribution remains secure thanks to a formula based on multi-year rolling averages. This year's distributions are expected to exceed $2.5 billion, benefiting public education and other programs. The market turbulence follows the Trump administration's decision to increase tariffs, including a 34% tariff on China and a proposed 20% tariff tied to fentanyl tracking. Despite calls from business leaders and lawmakers to pause the trade war, Trump says he remains open to negotiations, but only for what he calls a, quote, fair deal for the United States. The tariff hike has rattled markets and driven sharp declines, with New Mexico's public investment funds feeling the ripple effects. The New Mexico Corrections Department is under legal fire once again, this time from a government transparency group over its alleged pattern of violating the state's Inspection of Public Records Act. A lawsuit filed this month by the New Mexico Foundation for Open Government accuses the agency of withholding public records and failing to account for how much it costs taxpayers in legal settlements over these violations. Filed in the First Judicial District Court in Santa Fe, the 22-page complaint demands that the Corrections Department disclose how much money it has paid out in settlements and legal fees stemming from at least 9 successful IPRA lawsuits since 2020. The watchdog group estimates those cases have cost the state at least $365,000. The suit specifically challenges the Correction Department's claims that it has, quote, no records of such payments, a response that the Foundation for Open Government says is implausible, given that the agency is a party to lawsuits and would have directly been involved in crafting settlement agreements. The complaint highlights a pattern of non-compliance by the Corrections Department that has led to repeated and costly legal battles. Among the most prominent examples is when the ACLU filed at least 7 lawsuits since 2021, resulting in $200,000 in settlements. In 2023, the Corrections Department paid $38,000 to settle a lawsuit over records about inmate labor, and that same year it paid $70,000 to resolve a suit from Disability Rights New Mexico, who was seeking data on the confiscation of illegal drugs inside the prisons. The Foundation for Open Government says these examples are, quote, just the tip of the iceberg, pointing to a broader issue of systematic failure to respond to records requests as required by the law. The lawsuit seeks not only access to the records, but also unspecified damages and an injunction compelling the Corrections Department to comply with open records laws moving forward. It marks a significant escalation in the ongoing battle over transparency in state government operations, particularly in the prison system. As of now, the Corrections Department has declined to comment. A spokesperson said that the agency, quote, would have no comment regarding pending litigation. If you like hearing all of the latest news from the Albuquerque Journal here on the Leading News, consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal. You can check our show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription and keep up with all the latest news from New Mexico's leading news source. Now taking a look at Albuquerque's weather forecast. Today you can expect sunny skies with a high near 76, and for this evening mostly clear with a low around 42. To keep up with all the latest news from the Albuquerque Journal, you can visit our website at abqjournal.com. I'm Gino Gutierrez. The Leading News will be back tomorrow.